Okay, thank you. We're live.
All right, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the Town of Rocky Hill Planning and Zoning Commission Zoom remote meeting of May 20th, 2020 to order. My name is Dimple Desai, Chairman of the Commission. I want to welcome and thank the public for their patience while we get through our first virtual meeting. I like to thank Town's IT department for the hard work and assistance in hosting this meeting. I also like to thank the presenters to accommodate and participate in this format. Public speakers who have requested to speak during the public portion of the meeting or any of the proposals for Commission's action is already given Zoom remote meeting link to participate. IT staff will assist me in recognizing the public speaker as they are listed on the speakers list. Because we are in a Zoom remote meeting, I like to go over some guidelines that I would like everyone to strictly follow so that we have a complete record of our meetings. There will be a queue for speakers. Speakers will be recognized by IT staff. Speak clearly, state your name and address for the record. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please self-monitor your time. We may mute your speaker if you go over. This is very important as we are participating remotely, so please respect this request. At this time, I would like to introduce the commission members, the staff present for this meeting. Commissioner Victor Zerilli, seated. Commissioner Guy Drippo, seated. Commissioner Alan Madhorse, seated. Commissioner Ron Robbins. Is Ron here, right? Ron Robbins, seated.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yep. Yeah, so the absent commissioners are Frank Morse, Phil Silvestro. We also have Kim Ritchie, the town planner, Eileen Knapp, recording secretary. For the benefit of commissioners, I will start with the, with left, as if we are sitting in our audio, in our room. So when I say left, we start from Commissioner Zerilli onwards, and then I go to the right for comments. To avoid multiple conversation at the same time, I will recognize commissioner when it is their turn to speak. Having said that, I would like to open the public hearing. Commissioner Zerilli, you want to read the notice?
Sure. Number 1, continued public hearing, re-subdivision application for Gloria Kroll, proposing to create 1 residential building lot from the rear of 251 France Street, Lot 1 approximately 52,712 square feet, and Lot 2 approximately 77,984 square feet in a R40 residential zoning district, ID number 12-068. Continued from January 15th, 2020, for a full presentation and receipt of report from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency, requests, questions, and comments from public and commission and applicants rebuttal.
I think we are going to wait for the presenters.
Yeah, for Mark Reynolds. It would be Mark Reynolds, John.
Mark, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm having a problem with the camera on my laptop this evening, so you're not going to be able to see me. But anyway, I'm glad to get started. I also have a PowerPoint presentation with some of the maps on it. If it makes sense, I could do a share screen so that you could see the plans. But just to bring everyone up to speed, there's been only minor revisions to the plans since last we spoke. The Wetland Commission asked for a couple of revisions to the plantings, and so we've added some plantings along the edge of the upland review area, and we've also increased the size of the conservation easement slightly. It's about 5 feet wider along that boundary. So, I mean, to kind of go back a little bit, the overriding idea of the plan was to create a rear lot from the existing lot and to have the house location as far forward and to the right as you view the plans in your hand, so that it's as far away from the upland review area as possible. The Conservation Commission has approved the plan, and so I think at this point, I mean, it's a very simple plan. The erosion sediment control is included on it. And at this point, I could share screen if there's a specific thing that we wanted to look at, if that makes sense. I think, John, we can do that now, right?
Yes, that's possible.
Okay, I'm going to click share screen, and I'm going to go right there. Oh, wow, cannot see. There we go. Slideshow. So this is the first sheet of the plan. This indicates the existing house location in here, and the shaded area is the proposed conservation easement. So the access is here, and then the setbacks are shown with this dashed line. So you can see that this is the area that's available for the house. This is the sheet 2 that shows essentially the same information, just not the easement's not shaded, but you can see the plantings that are proposed along this line. The proposed house and garage location are here, and a shed here, and the driveway out to French Street right in this location. Does the commissioners have any questions for me at this time?
Can I ask what's the distance between the back corner of the proposed house and the wetlands?
Right in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just zoom in a little bit, and then that will help. So this is a 30-foot side yard right here where I'm showing. So this is about 40 feet from here to here, 40, 45 feet.
I do have a copy of the wetlands action for report later after the commission's questions are through.
Commissioner Zarelli, any?
Yeah, I'm just curious if that's all you have for your presentation before we start diving in.
Well, I mean, I spoke to the site quite a bit in the first public hearing. I guess I should go a little more detailed if this is, because there might be people listening that weren't at that meeting, but so let me just say a few more things. The proposed lot is a rear lot. It meets all the dimensional requirements and all in every way. It has the wetland areas which we're protecting with a conservation easement, as is shown on the first slide, which I don't know why I can't get to it now, but we're showing with the shaded area. Go back down. Sorry, I'm having some difficulty with the computer here. We've also taken some additional measures to protect the wetland area by adding a note about fertilizers and a whole bunch of plantings. There's an erosion sediment control plan that includes a silt fence along the front of where the planting area is, right in here. And other standard erosion sediment controls. The stockpile is up in this area. The building will be served by sewer and water. The grading is relatively minor. It takes advantage of a good topographic location right where it sits. So yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say that I haven't said previously. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, of course.
Dimple, if I may, it's Kim chiming in. Mark, just so you know that the commission members have changed. They
Okay.
were reappointed. There were different appointments back in February. So many of the people that are here this evening were not present for that initial presentation. That's why when the hearing was continued, it was done so to have a full presentation in the wetlands report.
Okay,
Okay, I understand, Ken. Thank you.
this is Victor Zerilli. Couple questions. Do you know the distance of the access drive from the street to the length of it? 'Cause in our regulations, rear lots in an R40 zone should not exceed 400 feet. So I was just wondering what that is.
I'm just gonna switch to this sheet because it has some more dimensions that will make it easier for you to see. The dimension of the front yard that's depicted here is 90 feet. And the dimension here is 206. So just a quick would be about 296 feet.
Okay, so we're cool there. According to section 4A of our regulations, do we talk about sidewalks? Was there a sidewalk waiver as part of your application?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you.
Waiver. Chairman Desai? This is Alan speaking.
Yes.
I'm looking at the actions from the February meeting. All the members that we have now were already in place at the February meeting when we tabled this hearing or recessed this hearing. So we don't have any new members. That was all the new members started back on the February 5th meeting, which was to elect officers. Just a point of information.
Thanks. Yep. Commissioner, do you have any comments? Commissioner Mahosh?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ron?
I'm just curious as to the sanitary sewer. I saw the spec drawings on the last diagram. Just trying to our copy's a little small. Just trying to figure out where the sanitary sewer is going to go. Looks like it's all run along the driveway.
Yes, the sanitary runs along the driveway. I'm sorry, it's hard to see on the plan, but the manhole, that's receiving manhole is right in this location.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a point of curiosity as far as location. I didn't have anything additional.
So I had a couple of questions. The first thing is there was a memo from the staff seeking some clarification. I want to confirm if all those conditions are satisfied. Kim, this is for you. Like I think there was a memo from David Bamberg on December 30th.
Correct. Well, the plans we prior to, and I believe there was one set a little bit later, but they were submitted in December.
Okay.
Trying to find that memo. I just had the memo. Yeah, a lot of these items talked about the open space as well, and some of the open space conditions that were addressed as well. And show bearings and distances, that type of thing. So you have a lot of minor items on this subdivision that need to be tweaked.
Mhm.
Concerning, if I may, concerning Victor Zarelli's comment, he was, I believe if I had the question correctly, he was talking about the length of the access way to the rear lot. Is that correct?
Yep.
Because
Yes.
the length to the access way, basically where the lot widens out, that's the end of the length. That's where that measurement ends. So it's approximately 206 feet.
Now, the other question I have is on the waiver for sidewalk. So what is the reason for the waiver?
We need one. You got a sidewalk across the street.
If I could just take a second, this is Mark Reynolds. The picture that with my name doesn't really, it doesn't go with me, but anyway, I just want to make sure I got the floor here. With regard to the comments, Kim, that you were referring to, it's my understanding that the plans have been revised for all of those comments. I think those comments you're referring to were from early on, and we've made those revisions they've been in the plan set for quite a while. As far as the sidewalk goes, I honestly don't recall what the conversation was about the sidewalk with staff. Maybe Kim, you can refresh my memory. It's been a while.
A sidewalk waiver would have to be requested by the applicant. And what would happen is and we're in the process of finalizing that on our subdivision regulations this evening, actually. But what happens is when a sidewalk is waived, the town engineer puts forth a memorandum to the applicant stating what the construction costs would be for that sidewalk if it were to be built to town specifications along this particular lot frontage. After which time there would be a donation to a sidewalk fund, which we will be formalizing this evening. It is part of the town ordinance as it exists now.
Okay, thank you for that refresher. I recall now. And I believe that is what is appropriate at this location. I don't think anyone that I've talked to about this application thought that it would be appropriate to have sidewalk at this spot. I mean, we haven't had a sidewalk in the plan from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's sidewalk across the street in this location.
That's right.
So there is a sidewalk on other side of the road.
Right.
Okay. Usually, at least I like to see sidewalks and on one side and connected, so that going forward we are making our town accessible by if people want to walk, things like that. And if it's waived, as Kim said, we would like to see the funds go into the, sidewalk account. So we can use those funds to, build sidewalks where we don't have currently. So that's what I had. And just a comment on the application. I think it's the item 8 on application for approval of subdivision plan. And it says, is there any water course within of contiguous to the property? And it said no, which, should be yes. So it's just a minor thing, but I just want to make sure that the applications are correct so that in future, when somebody's looking at the application, they have correct information. Having that, I'm all set. Any other commissioner would like to comment? I have questions on.
If I may I go over the wetlands action?
Yes.
The Wetlands Commission approved this application with conditions. That was done so at their March 11th meeting of 2020. The conditions were approved. Our owner to remove the dead trees and tree that were proposing a health and safety welfare issue in the conservation easement. Remove all debris from the conservation easement. Inspect, the staff would be allowed to expect plantings in 1-year and 3-year intervals along the conservation easement for health and vitality, and replace where needed.
Okay, so it's a conditional approval, or is that staff is going to?
That was it was approved with conditions, but staff will be
Okay,
monitoring.
all right. Are there any questions from the public? Anyone from the public, any questions? We know there is nobody, no public present. So I would like to have a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor? Second? All in
Second.
favor? Okay.
Aye.
Let's move on to the second public hearing.
Public hearing number 2. Proposed amendments to the Rocky Hill subdivision regulations, Town of Rocky Hill, proposing to number 1, add language to section 4A, waivers, installation of sidewalks. Where the commission finds that such facilities will serve no useful purpose, the applicant may propose a fee in lieu of sidewalks in the amount as approved by the town engineer. The fee submission to the Town of Rocky Hill becomes a condition of approval imposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The proposed fee is the cost of the construction of the sidewalk for the specific site in question, along with an estimate of construction costs submitted by the applicant's engineer. The town engineer will review the proposal, set the agreed upon fee, the payment of which will be deposited into the sidewalk fund per town ordinance, chapter 212, streets and sidewalks. Number 2, add the following reference to the end of section 10D, street classification and design criteria, sidewalks, refer to section 4A.
Thank you, Victor, for reading the legal notice, which is in fact the language that we are looking to put into our subdivision regulations. You may recall that there have been 2 submissions of sidewalk fees. We have a total of probably $38,000 roughly at this point in time in what we believe to be a sidewalk fund. In order to formalize this, to have a separate line item in the budget, we're looking to create this fund under Town Ordinance Chapter 212. One of the issues that came up when we were doing the waivers was, what is the process? So we thought we'd put that into the subdivision regulations. That way applicants could be aware of the process. So everyone has the same information. So we want to clarify it in our subdivision regulations and formalize it with our town treasurer and finance department. Are there any questions by the commission?
I think just clarification that I think we wanted to have this particular language in, so we know that whenever a waiver is given and funds are available, they go to the account, and then that account can be used for sidewalks only. So I think that was one of the major consideration. Now, the other thing, just for discussion purpose, is that this doesn't give right to everybody just to seek waiver for sidewalk because it's there. I think, there are conditions that goes along, like, if it's not feasible to construct a sidewalk because of the slopes or because of, whatever other topographical hindrance, then we look at the option of having a waiver. I just want other commissioners to chime in and see what their thoughts are, because this would be used as precedent in the future, like when questions are raised, because it allows for waiver, what the real intent is when we put this language in. Having said that, I'll just go again from left to right. Commissioner Zarelli?
I concur with you. This should be always considered in lieu of, and we always push for sidewalks first. Questions to staff. How do we know how this money is used? Is it basically now it goes to the town budget and town engineering determine when it should be used versus, is this like, because there's only, like you said, 38,000 or whatever the amount is in there. Does that mean that's all that can be used? Like, are they used for repairs? Are they used for new sidewalks? How is this fund used?
This is used to actually build sidewalks. In the past, the discussion between town engineer and myself was to fill in some of the gaps that exist throughout the town.
So it's not for repairs, it's for new. It's considered for new, right?
It should be for new.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Commissioner Drapeau?
I have nothing to add. I'm in agreement with this provision. Good idea.
Thank you. Commissioner Marhos?
I'm fine with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robbins?
Works fine for me. Just be aware that it probably won't be a problem, but just be aware that you might run into some jurisdictional issues with being able to charge this fee to a state or federal project. But other than that, but I wouldn't change it. We'll cross that road when we get there, but better to apply it universally to everyone. And if anybody ever challenged it, again, it would have to be a jurisdictional issue going in reverse to state or federal land.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine the way it's written.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I would like to have a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll go to our next item on the agenda, which is public. Anyone who would like to address to the commission on any of the topics? This is open session, so anybody who's interested in talking. And I see, we don't have anyone lined up for comments, so we'll move to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next item, agenda item 6A.
Re-subdivision application for Gloria Kroll proposing to create one residential building lot from the rear of 251 France Street, Lot 1 approximately 52,712 square feet, and Lot 2 approximately 77,984 square feet in an R40 residential district ID 12-068.
Motion to approve the re-subdivision application for Gloria Kroll, et cetera.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes with 5-0.
Does that include the sidewalk waiver?
I think now we are going to B. Oh, okay.
No.
Yes.
I believe in it. I approve with the sidewalk waiver.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Did Alan?
I'm fine with that. I'll amend the motion to include the sidewalk waivers.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So Kim, you will let us know when that estimate comes in, like what it is, how, and how it was derived.
Correct.
Because we would like to keep a log of those, for our meetings, so we know how much is in the account and what's coming in.
Okay, I will.
Thank you. Commissioner Zarelli, 6B.
Agenda item B, proposed amendments to the Rock Hill subdivision regulations. Town of Rock Hill proposing to, number 1, add language to section 4A waivers. Installation of sidewalks where the commission finds that such facilities will serve no useful purpose. The applicant may propose a fee in lieu of sidewalks in an amount as approved by the town engineer. The fee submission to the town of Rock Hill becomes a condition of approval imposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The proposed fee is the cost of the construction of the sidewalk for the specific site in question, along with an estimate of construction costs submitted by the applicant's engineer. The town engineer will review the proposed, set the agreed upon fee, the payment of which will be deposited into the sidewalk fund per town ordinance, chapter 212, streets and sidewalks. Number 2, add the following reference to the end of section 10D, street classification and design criteria sidewalks referred to section 4A.
Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve such language in 6A to the Rock Hill subdivision regulations for sidewalks.
Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? A motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 6C.
Statutory referral under CGS 8-24 for acceptance of open space land only associated with Creek School located at 7 Gardner Way, more specifically 2.94 acres to be conveyed from Gardner's Nurseries Incorporated and 1.995 acres to be conveyed from Capital Region Education Council to the town of Rock Hill as shown on drawing tile conveyance plan property of Gardner's Nurseries Incorporated, Brook Street, Rock Hill, Connecticut, scale 1 inch to 80 feet, date October 10th, 2017, sheet number 1.
Kim, do you want to give?
Yes, we have attorney David Hoops, who I believe did join the meeting. He is representing, I believe, Creek in this.
Good evening, everyone.
Application. You may recall, the commission members that were on the commission at the time, we may recall that the Creek School was approved and constructed on 7 Gardens Way, which will be a town road eventually off of Brook Street. There was a ring of open space surrounding the building and outdoor playfields on site, some of which was owned by Gardner's Nursery and others owned by Capital Region Education Council. We did receive a rather comprehensive packet of information from Attorney Hoops, and it should be in your packet. concerning deeds and documentation with respect to the conveyance, as well as a plan showing the lands that will be conveyed as described in the agenda item.
Any hopes you want to, okay, you done, Kim? I'm sorry. Okay. Any hopes?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Hoops, I represent TREC. This is a project approved by the commission about 3 years ago, and as it involved the subdivision, and as part of that, there was open space that was required to be reserved and dedicated to the town if the town wanted it. It's my understanding that town still wants the open space. So we've prepared the conveyance documents for review by town staff and town attorney. That should be in your packet. And the school, I'm sure everyone's aware, the school is almost finished. It looks good, and we're ready to convey the open space anytime the town would like to accept it. And as you know, by statute, acquisition of land by the town requires a report from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we are seeking a favorable recommendation for the conveyance of the open space to the town per the terms of the original P&Z approval.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please?
Could I just ask a question?
Okay.
Is this a referral to the town council?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all.
All right. Maybe I
Kim-
should ask
Kim-
anyone has any other questions?
Kim, question, has staff been out to site and make sure everything is okay before we pass this on?
This is strictly the open space. This is not the certificate of zoning compliance for the school itself. But the answer is yes. Staff has been.
Okay.
reviewing the site.
All right. Any other commissioners? I would like to have a motion. There's no other comment.
Motion to approve the referral 8-24 for acceptance of the open space from the Creek School on 7 Gardner Way.
Can I have a
that.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Agenda item 7, any other business? The item A is process to reopen restaurants. Kim, you want to discuss that?
Yes, this is what has been what's been keeping your staff busy for the past week or so. As you may know, there's been a series of executive orders issued by Governor Lamont when he declared a state of emergency March 10th of this year. On March 16th of this year, Executive Order 7D actually closed restaurants to all patrons. Recently on May 12th, Executive Order 7, capital M, expedited changes to municipal laws, ordinances, regulations to allow for outdoor dining. Dave Pomberg and I got a hold of this executive order. A policy was created on behalf of the town. And I believe you had 7MM in your packet. I believe you did. If not, I can certainly send that out to you. The process has changed. So this is not a planning and zoning commission process. It has fallen onto zoning administrators' shoulders. The reason being, the governor has set up the Planning and Zoning Commission, where the towns have a Planning and Zoning Commission, to be the appeal board. For example, if we as staff under our process deny a restaurant from outdoor dining, what would happen is those individuals and business owners would come to the Planning and Zoning Commission within 7 days of staff action to appeal that process. The governor has waived minimum parking requirements. So the zoning requirements concerning outdoor dining are basically on hold and held at bay and suspended until such time as the state of emergency is over, or the governor issues a subsequent executive order repealing this. We have since had this, oh, by the way, this does include serving of alcoholic beverages also. So if an establishment has received a legal approval for serving restaurant beer and wine or a full restaurant license in their indoor facility, this will carry over to their new outdoor facility. The regulation also says it is a 50% occupancy. So we're working closely with the fire marshal with respect to occupancy rates and safety issues. And we're working closely with the health district and their staff with respect to the COVID-19 health related issues. On May 18th of this year, Executive Order 7 PP was instituted. So this is a very fluid process, unfortunately. Talking about business reopening phase 1. And it refers to the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development guidelines, which has included in it sector rules for restaurants, outdoor dining, outdoor retail, other types of uses. We just had a change in this with respect to hair salons and barbershops. But the sector rules, as put forth by Department of Economic and Community Development, they're enforced by the health district, the local health directors authority and health district, whereas other policies in the requirements are reviewed by fire marshal's office and zoning as well. The town manager, as recently as today, as a municipal executive official, he authorized myself and Dave Pomberg to enforce the non-health related facilities such as the outdoor retail sales. So this is a work in progress. I believe I did include in the packet one of the first revisions or the first issuance of the policies that has since been revised May 15th. So I'm not sure which version you have. The process was guided by our town legal counsel. She was involved every step of the way. When we first heard about it, we contacted her to find out what other communities are doing. We did get involved with the planners listserv and contacted other communities to find out what process they were using as well. So I know it's different from what the commission normally does. So it's a staff process with the commission acting as the appeals board. One of the discussions we have had amongst ourselves as staff was during this time, during this state of emergency, do we as a commission want to look at outdoor dining regulations and say, maybe we want to modify what we have in our regulations now for the future for more permanent outdoor dining regulations. And then once the governor ends the state of emergency, do we want to have something in place to extend this temporary outdoor dining in some fashion? That's something for us to discuss at some point.
Yeah, I think we all received, it looks like the first draft based on 7mm. And I think you have redrafted or you have a second draft based on 7PP, it looks like.
Well, this is, our latest is dated May 15th. So the latest is dated May 15th. We already have received contact from approximately 7 establishments.
Okay.
I believe 2 have been approved, at least as of mid-afternoon today. And we have a few more in the process of getting information to us. There's not a formal plan associated with it. It's a sketch plan. And as I said, we work closely with the fire marshal for safety issues, proximity to roads, that type of thing.
and I will let other commissioners chime in. At least what I was thinking was, granted, we are not involved in approving anything, but I just wanted to get the benefit of what is required and how it works and things like that. So we have a process set that commission knows that this is how the applications will be reviewed. These are the things that will be required and things like that. So, you know, when again, in the future, when commission has to be a referee and has to, you know, look at the complaint, you know, we can look at all the things and, you know, all the approvals. So that was the purpose of sharing this, the guidance document. So hopefully, you know, you have reviewed that document, and if you have any questions or anything, you know, maybe we can, you know, we can talk about it. So I'll start with Commissioner Zurelli.
Question to Kim and anybody else on staff or anybody else on the commission. Did you guys find anything making these regulations that we should put into our permanent regulations? Like any good nuggets that we should consider going forward?
Well, if we decide to do outdoor dining, yes. If we decide to go ahead with outdoor dining in any area, yes, because we're looking at impacts to neighborhoods. If it abuts a residential zone or a residential neighborhood, we do look for a narrative as to how lighting will impact the area, noise. Is there going to be outdoor music, waste management, with respect to safety? Typically, people are building patios if they're doing a more permanent solution. Because the parking requirements are waived by the governor, we have people putting up canopies in parking areas now. So this is a totally different animal. But we are seeing the types of things we should be considering. This doesn't require a professionally drawn plan. This requires a sketch drawing and property owner's signature. One of the things that is really unique in this executive order is that if I own a piece of property here, but my business doesn't have enough room on my property to open up, if I work with a property owner, a nearby property owner, and get their permission, I can have my tenant on my business open up on a business property 2 properties away. That's something included in one of the executive orders. We haven't had that request as of yet. I can see it coming down the road, but we haven't had that many requests so far.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I sent Kim a couple of comments. There's a few things in this that this is all temporary, and you know, once this goes away, we don't have to worry about it. But for the future, if we're going to be modifying our regulations, there should be some things that we keep in mind, that some of the things in this executive order or permission, whatever it is, can be used in the future to skirt our zoning regulations. Like we just had at the February meeting, we had an application asking for a property to be rezoned so it could be used as a parking lot for a restaurant that's maybe 300 feet away. One of the comments I made to Kim was the activities, I'm calling them activities other than just outdoor dining, should be confined to the property occupied by the restaurant itself. I don't think it's a good idea that we start allowing restaurant owners with talking to the neighbors and saying, yeah, they said we could do it, so we're going to have a parking lot where a parking lot really shouldn't be in the first place, type of thing. Now this is just covering it, you know, very basically. You know, we should go into more detail, but if we're thinking about making changes to comply with some of these things that people are going to be wanting to do, we should be very careful about abutting properties, or even, as Kim mentioned, it could be a property 2-3 away being used as a parking lot for a restaurant. That I don't think is something that the town wants to get involved in regulation wise.
I agree with Commissioner Moorhurst. I just asked just to make sure that if we have some good things that we can take out of this to put into the regs, because we've always sometimes struggle with applicants when it comes to outside dining and music and noise and lights and all this other stuff. Maybe we should just have something for outside dining. We do have a lot of restaurants in town, and they could have the opportunity to better themselves, especially close to the river, like you were just talking about, or even on the west side of town. If we can get something more permanent out of this, I think it'd be a win-win for the town.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to actually formulate some regulations on how these outdoor dining facilities should be addressed by the owners as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission. And a couple other comments, if I could, that I sent to Kim were, we have to be very careful about live music or recorded music, or even radio boombox music if they're in areas that could disturb near. I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking about, the problem we've had for the last 3 or 4 years. An outdoor restaurant could really affect the lifestyle of the people that live nearby. And another thing would be lighting, as Victor Zarelli mentioned, and we should be very careful about outdoor lighting for dining room. And another thing is, if it's an outdoor dining area, it should be confined to outdoor dining. No ring toss games, no other games should be set up anywhere without approval. I mean, anything that I'm mentioning now, this is without coming to the commission and asking for approval. It may be some locations where these things would be very appropriate and should not be prohibited, but it should be up to the commission's discretion to approve things in advance before they go ahead and do things. So those were my comments that I sent to Kim. And the biggest thing I'm concerned about is the overflowing a property into an adjacent property or even further down the street for parking or any other activities. That I don't think is a very good idea, unless, it should be on a case by case basis, but we shouldn't really look at it as something that would be a routine thing to allow.
Right. I think what I like to concentrate, at least for this meeting, is this temporary, proposal that governor has proposed, which is a short term. So I think we can always talk about the long term, and we can have, draft and things like that. But because of this, and summer is coming, and because of the immediate need, and staff is, as you heard, they already got the request. So I like to at least get the guidance in place so that staff can work appropriately. And if there are issues in the future, we are already, we are ready to address those issues. Having said that, Commissioner DePaul.
Wow. That's all I can say. Alan, we are not friends. You don't want anyone to have any fun. A couple comments.
Come on, let's get serious here.
If we're at 50% capacity, I don't think there's going to be any traffic issues with the, with the parking lots. Kim, I got to commend the governor on this. That's a tough piece of legislation he threw out, and I was surprised to see that he's allowing for the economic expansion into parking lots and other areas. So I was pretty happy with it. Things that came to my mind immediately were electricity, outdoor, portable electricity, which could be possibly dangerous. The other thing that came to my mind was portalets. Where are those going to be, and how many are we going to allow for? And in some of the establishments where you're going past 9:30 and you're serving alcoholic beverages, are we still going to allow underage activity into what used to be one side's a restaurant, one side's a bar, or is it just going to be only 21 and over. I don't know what our position is or what our authority is, but just things for Cam and company to think about when they're allowing for this stuff to happen.
If I may, Dimple?
Yep.
So there is indoor access for restaurant establishments strictly for restroom use, with that 6-foot physical distancing between parties. So that takes care of the portalettes. With respect to the liquor licenses, any establishment that has a liquor license for the indoor facility, it automatically gets extended per governor's order to the outdoor.
I saw
We
that.
have no say in that matter. As far as the town of Rocky Hill policies for restaurants reopening, it's a done deal. This is what we have. Okay, the policy is done. It's done by staff. You serve as the judge. You folks serve as the judge for an appeal. So just so you know. It does take into consideration, you're talking about lights and noise pollution. We make them put forth a narrative in their submission as far as how they comply with certain things, as far as lights, waste management, odors, light pollution. Working with the health district, we want one way into this outdoor dining area, one way out. One way into the restaurant for restroom use, separate areas for waiting for takeout. Because keep in mind, the takeout business is still going on at the same time, okay? Eventually, when they do open up, I believe this will go away. I don't know what the government may change this order, and we'd have to tailor the policy accordingly. What I can do, well, I don't think it's appropriate that I send you the applications in case somebody appeals. They would do that if they appeal a decision that we make. As I said, we have 10 days to make a decision when someone applies. We haven't been taking that long. If someone does appeal, you have 7 days to make that decision. So you may be having special meetings if they appeal.
Commissioner Robbins?
The only concerns I have are in both for this as a temporary measure based on the COVID-19 issues, and also as future possible proposed zoning regulations. It's just what are the controls? What are going to be the controls in the process? Do we have a defined limit or period of performance or duration on the approval process? Also, what enforcement controls do we have, and have we defined those? Because you may, even on this one, you may approve it and it may be fine, but then it grows into something that you didn't approve. And you just want to make sure that the applicants have a clear understanding that if they deviate from the approval and the conditions that you put on them, and that the conditions are defined so it doesn't become arbitrary, that your enforcement involves, immediately putting them on notice and or shutting them down based on whatever that is. If that's not defined in advance, you may hit some gray areas for those situations where you may run into problems. So it could be true with this scenario. It could be true if we ever come up with a temporary outdoor dining issue. So it's just to make actually your life easier. The more clarity that's added to the process, the easier it'll be to enforce. If there's any ambiguity, then we'll have to, debate issues and it drags on, and then the local neighbors complain. And so, and then all the other issues that would be brought up, I'd be more worried about those for when we get to the point when we're talking about maybe developing something in our zoning regulations for temporary outdoor dining. And that just gets into, the more technical issues as far as being much more specific. But yeah, those are my comments.
Thank you. I think you're right. the whole purpose of this is because of COVID-19. And with that, the enforceability and the liability comes into the picture. Because say, they have outdoor dining that is approved. Who is going to monitor that a group of 6 kids or 10 kids come in and they sit, together on a table, which I believe you can only have 5 on one table. And, so who is going to monitor those things and who would be liable for that if something goes wrong? So I think, I don't know whether that is clear here or in the executive order or any guidance that is out there by listserv or other towns. Maybe we should look into that so that that liability issue is covered in the application, so that if you shut them down and even after shutting down somebody gets infected, then what happens? So that is something, at least for this short term, I'm worried about. Long term, we can all talk about what we want and things, but the short term is related to health and safety of the people attending restaurants, and also workers and servers and all those guys. So
As I stated, the health district and the director of public health
Yeah.
is responsible for enforcing the health-related issues on here. So we're all in contact with each other. Fire marshal with respect to access to fire connections and making sure access ways are not blocked. The health district has already weighed in on this, and we just got that information this morning as a matter of fact from our town manager, as far as the health district being in charge of that. So
okay.
this is a temporary,
Yep.
strictly for COVID. This is all this is. I'm just bringing it to your attention because I know the chairman and I, in discussions for this meeting, wanted to know what was going to be happening with the outdoor dining. So that's why it's
Right.
these being brought to you now.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on to B? All right, Kim, zoning enforcement.
Zoning enforcement, we've as people have been home, we have been getting a lot more calls. It's the time for tall grass now, so we've been getting a few of those calls for tall grass, random throughout the town. Typically, it's more of the foreclosed properties, or as the season just gets started and people are just starting to mow their lawns, so that's coming up. But people don't realize that under our blight ordinance, grass can be 1 foot tall. It has to be a foot tall before it's considered blight. So, and that looks pretty bad. That looks pretty bad, but we can't enforce it under that regulation without that. So we're getting those types of calls, and we're also getting a lot of unregistered vehicle calls. So that's what we've been dealing with. As far as zoning enforcement, primarily our main focus has been the business reopening, to be honest with you.
Question, Kim.
Mhm.
It actually concerns business reopening. Are we going to be a little bit lenient on signage for these businesses to basically say, we're open now, and, getting them close to the road and that kind of thing to help businesses out the same way we're trying to help restaurants out? I know what
Are the same. We don't say we're keep in mind, zoning enforcement is a discretionary process. We try to be as consistent as we can. We do have, if they're opening for outdoor retail, that may be a new type of business in that they haven't done that before. With respect to restaurants, open for takeout, you may have seen several signs around town, open for takeout. Well, now they're open for outdoor dining. You may start seeing those signs out and about, in addition to the requisite signs for the COVID issues and social distancing. So.
I think what I would add that, if somebody erects a permanent sign because of this temporary thing, I mean, then it becomes a difficult situation going back and undo and, so I think, at least I think that we should focus on whatever the governor has given directive in terms of, relaxing some of the regulations. So rather than expanding it to every other thing, because it may get cumbersome for staff to monitor all those things. So I would rather like just focus on what directive we have.
Yes, there's been a lot of waivers. Basically ordinances, a lot of the town ordinances and regulations are suspended during the state of emergency. That doesn't mean if a sign is placed that it blocks sight distance, that's an issue.
Right.
We have a problem with that.
Any other comments on item B? If not, moving on to item 7C, minor modifications.
I would say none at this point in time. We have some that will be coming in soon.
Okay, thank you. Moving to agenda item 8, any communications?
Packet. I would say not.
All right, moving on to item 9, approve bills.
None.
The favorite item agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second,
all in
Second.
favor?
aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
safe.
everyone.
All right, we'll see you. Take care. Stay
Take
safe.
care. Be safe. Yep.
Thank you.